My name is Bob Patterson. I'm a leader in the social action work at First Unitarian Church, which is where I first met Diane. And this church is very active on a lot of issues. But I guess about 16 years ago, when Diane and I were younger, we organized two huge forums against police brutality and police murder during the murders of the 90s. And when Diane called me, she said, "I need your help. Will you help?" And I said, "We'll be there." And then we had the honor of meeting Anita, and we went into her store and with another good friend, who I'm pretty sure will speak before the night is over, and assured her we would stand by her through this, no matter what happened. But what is this exactly? Well, I'm hearing a lot of things, and with all due respect, it's procedural and institutional murder. That's what it is. It's racist, procedural, institutional murder. Okay? So from the beginning, the four demands were, we want the tapes, we want the names, we want the procedures, and we want a list of the procedures as to how this place is run. Okay? Then you have to ask what kind of people, under what kind of guidelines, would sit there with a woman screaming out in pain for 7 hours, and then say, frankly, what was said, I know we're in a church, but was shut, blank, blank, I'll let you fill in the blanks, up, or we're going to lose your papers. Call it what you want, but it's institutional, and it's racism is its biggest tool to keep us all separate. What we need to do is unite and organize together. So I'm going to ask you all to do something for us, okay? Is to help us with that. We need you to stand behind this incredibly brave family here. Incredibly brave. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience working with them. And I go back to the civil rights movement. And we need you to speak to your neighbors, get out to these events. We need to have the manpower and woman power to organize to really stand up against this. Because if we unite as people, that's what's going to make the difference. That's what has always made the difference, and it will continue to make the difference. So please help, please stand with us in this fight, in this struggle.
God bless you, Miss Nicole. Thank you. Where is she? She's right here. My heart is with you. It's difficult for any one of us as parents and caregivers. When I heard about the story from Hadley, I'm also part of the Jails Action Coalition, and I am a Brooklynite. Your story is not unusual. My son was missing in Central Brooklyn in 2012. I called all over because he had a pass, criminal pass, we're running around with young people in Crown Heights and upstate, just trying to, do things. He wasn't a bully, he didn't carry guns, he's afraid of guns, that's why we couldn't get him in armed forces. And I called 311 because my son was missing. He's special needs with central auditory processing disorder, meaning he can hear you, but he can't comprehend unless he watches your lips move. I called the 71st Precinct on Empire Boulevard. They said, "We never heard of your son." I said, "That's strange." I called the morgue, I called Kings County downstate. I even went to Flores calling Beth Israel Hospital to see where my son was missing. I had to call 311, it took 2 days. And in the later afternoon, I was told that they found him. He was at Central Booking. Then they told me he was down at Skimmerhorn. When I went to Skimmerhorn, they made me wait from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock the next morning and told me, "Well, you can come back, go to lunch, come back, and he's going to before the judge." When I came back, they said, "Oh, who are you waiting on?" I said, "Well, it's 9 o'clock. Where's my son?" They said, "Wait, we're going to bring him up." 1 o'clock in the morning, they told me, "Oh, we had the hearing without you." He was placed inside another courtroom. and taken to Rikers Island. Recently, I didn't hear from my son in February. February 21st, we were in court, Brooklyn Supreme Court. And that was the last time I really saw my son until the 20th of February. I felt something was wrong, didn't know what was going on at Rikers Island. When I went to visit him, they were shifting him back and forth to each dorm within Rikers Island. When I came to Rikers Island on the 28th, I asked where was my son. They said, well, we switched him to another dorm, which each on Rikers Island has several houses and several facilities within this complex. When I finally saw my son, it was 3 o'clock. I arrived at 7 a.m. in the morning. When I finally asked my son what was going on, he said, Mommy, I was coughing up blood in my cell. I said, what do you mean coughing up blood? He said, I got a sharp pain, and I just wanted to read a book, but I was coughing up blood was everywhere. And when I asked for the officers to take me to the doctor, they took me to a place called Potts Island, and they left me there in a cell with no medical attention. The next day at 12:30, because I watched the clock, and I said, Officer, please help me, somebody. She said, you're breathing, aren't you? After that, I called 311 and said, please, can you get the doctors? No matter what his past is, he's not a violent offender. He just wants help, just to let him breathe to see the judge the next day. Good. March 2nd, I went back in again to make sure he was breathing. He said, yeah, I'm okay, I'm just still in pain. I haven't seen a doctor. Well, lo and behold, on March 3rd, I didn't know this happened until March 9th. The Special Task Force, which they call the Special Service Unit, which they, the better names, if anybody ever been incarcerated or know anybody or CO, they are better known as the Turtles. They're known as the Turtles because they carry riot gear and helmets and bulletproof vests. As my son was exiting out of the bathroom, 5 to 7 officers told him to put his hands behind his back. And everybody on records, you can't do that, because once you put your hands behind your back, you become a statistic, they murder you right on impact. As my son said, the officers tried to grab him this year. My son said, all I could remember, he said, on the streets of Brooklyn, we don't fight no cops. He said, but in here, I had to fight for my life. He said, all I remember is knocking 2 cops out of the way, and their helmets were flying. When I turned around, I was maced in the face, but they were punching me as they were macing me. They threw his body down, and they kicked him with their brogan war boots. That's what we call them, war boots. They kicked him in his ribs and stomped him on his hands and his knees. And as they were stomping him, he said he could hear the other inmates screaming to try to get at him, but they blocked the doors. But they couldn't finish him off, because after they picked up his body, because he's 278 pounds, 6'2", an African-American male. When they took his body, I didn't know where he was. I was at the Beyond the Bars with Angela Davis on the 7th and 8th of March. My son found out that his brother was at Downstate. After they beat him, 2 days later on March 5th, he was shipped out to Downstate to await his court date. When my son called me, I cried. I said, no, this can't be possible. He said, Mommy, I'm coming home. He was beat by the Turtles. I got money up, even though I had to go to a hearing against the corrections officer, because, ladies and gentlemen, this is not isolated. Even though her daughter didn't have a record, there's thousands of people right now. We have 4,000 young men from Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens with mental illness that didn't even reach the news yet. I was contacted by the New York Times, the Daily News. Everybody wants to do a story on this thing. My son is not in New York. We had to call the top brass. I had to depend on Hadley. I had to depend on everyone. I had called Al Sharpton. Nobody answered me. I had to call everybody. I said, keep him there, because my son can identify the officer, so they're waiting for him to come back to finish him off. This is what happens. Tomorrow morning, I'll be leaving to see if my son is still breathing. This is a travesty, because he wasn't even sentenced yet. So my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to your family. And I don't live far away. I live up there on Washington Avenue. I will be here to fight with you. And now we're going to another hearing with those officers. I don't know how many, the 10 officers that's being indicted, or the 4? The 10? The 10. The 5? The 10. I was there when they beat that inmate. 10 officers. And because the sergeant didn't like the way the young man looked, he summons one of the officers to take his boots and knock the man's teeth out. They had to wire his jaw shut. So it is difficult to be in a dirty cell, knowing that your daughter, whether she had a crime or not, whether she had a past or not, somebody has to suffer the consequences for her. And many of us, you join us with Jackson, we're going to be behind you 100%. Because I know what it's like now to hear the thing that my son, I was waiting for him to say he was dead. because nobody survives the beating of the turtles or the special task unit. You know, in Brooklyn, we see guys in riot gear, we all move out of the way in Flatbush, New York, so we move. But in Rikers Island, you can't. It's either do or die. Right now, while I'm here talking to you wonderful men and women, right now, right after, I've been in Rikers Island for 6 years. I had detectives in the call me last night. They said, "Do you work there?" I said, "No, I went to check on other people's children for 6 years." Because everybody's child is my child. I don't hold a degree or a PhD or a master's degree. You don't need all those accolades in order to have a heart. You don't need that. I came out here because Hadley told me, I said, I take the 41 bus, I'll take you straight home, I'll be here. Because when I heard about your daughter, I didn't think twice about coming. Because I just found out about my son. And now they had to ship him to downstate to save his life. I just got calls all night, this detective says, "Wait a minute, is he gonna testify?" I said, "No, he's gonna testify in this case." He knows the officers that got him because he was able to see the faces. Mayor de Blasio, they just had a graduation of promotions for COs and captains in Rikers Island. So the ones that usually smile on our faces are our enemies, we just found out. But no matter what it is, I'm a strong woman, you're a strong woman, because God kept you here to tell us to be a role model to somebody else that's getting ready to go with us. Your daughter, matter of fact, she's not dead. She's resting in the arms of Jesus Christ looking at us right now, letting us know to keep going. I'm going to be with you, because she's strong. She's a pretty little girl. She got Jesus. I know the angels up there looking at her too. You know, and everybody say, "Hey, Joseph, Jacob, check this one out." Hey, it's kind of rough, but Lord, be to God, we're with you. And as I fight with you, your daughter may not have the situation that my son had, but they took me to Kings County and told me to know where he had. Took him back to the precinct. Guess what? He was sitting in the precinct all that time, starving. And they told him, "If you don't say you committed this crime, we're going to kill you." And they used the N-word. And my son has special needs. There was nobody to report to, so he said, "Yeah, I did it." And he still wasn't charged. He's been there now almost 3 years. But as I go in to see him, your daughter, she's going to be with me too. As I go to see my son, I'm going back to Rikers. Y'all don't know, I don't want to go back, but I have to go because there's other children that's being murdered right now while we speak. Because they use the terminology as the fight. They come and get you and say, "Oh, you wanted for a fight." No, you didn't get to a fight. And this is the protocol you hear on the news all the time about Rikers. My son lived to tell the story because they lived through it 3 times already in 1 week. So my prayers is with you. We'll fight with you. No matter what you're going through, we're going to stick this thing out. And we're going to make sure justice is served. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing and offering everything you said. Thank you. It brings back a lot of memories because several years ago, I actually had a job teaching out at Rikers. I taught 2 days a week. I had to teach GED and pretty much design a curriculum for other places. And I can definitely attest to exactly what you're saying. There's a lot of people out there sitting in limbo. Most people don't even know that the majority of people at Rikers have not been to trial yet. They're sitting there awaiting trials. And so they're innocent still, but they're sitting there for over 2 years, some of those people sitting in those cells. And the conditions that they leave those people in. I remember when they had the really bad winter a couple years ago, they had all those people on the barge, on the boat. And I think that was when Hurricane Sandy came. And everybody was like, "What are you going to do?" And they were like, "Well, they're in jail." They just left them there while Hurricane Sandy came in, I mean, these are the kind of things that we see all the time in the jail system. COs using other inmates to control, who does what, and ordering beat downs and all that kind of stuff is real. It's been in the papers, and it has been documented in other ways. So, I think we all just have to realize what we're really dealing with, that this is like one of the worst, ugliest jail systems that we have in this country. And it exists in the largest system in New York. I mean, when you look at New York as a state and the number of prisons that actually exist in New York, I mean, this is a prison state. Very similar to California and a few other places that have, just prison after prison. And so, the issue is the over-incarceration of our people. The issue is also, how can we attack these policies that allow stuff like that to continue? You know, how is it that somebody can be disappeared? Another story I wanted to share with y'all, a former coworker of mine recently called me. Now, this is somebody that I worked with when I was doing housing development, and she developed millions and millions of dollars worth of housing all over the city, affordable housing all over. And recently was driving near the North Conduit. A cop came behind her and flashed her. When the cop approached and she simply asked, "Why am I being stopped?" She was yelled at, called an N-word, and after she decided, okay, this is getting out of control, I need to call somebody to make sure that this is documented, she was actually dragged out of her vehicle, thrown on the ground, kicked, punched, and taken to a precinct. Now, this is while she was on her way upstate to meet her family. So her family gathering for the weekend got canceled. They had to come back to New York to look for her. And when her son, I guess, was able to figure out which precinct she was at, I think maybe she connected the call, they denied that she was there. He walked into the precinct and said, "I'm looking for Lori Miller, you know, who's been arrested," and they actually denied that she was there until he heard her screams coming out of the back. He heard her because her wrist cuffs were so tight that she was back there complaining, and he said, "Yes, that's my mom." And then they said, "Okay, well, we didn't know," you know. So this is a perfect example of the kind of things that happen. You know, when I hear Anita talk about how they tried to disappear her and nobody knew where she was, I mean, this is a common theme that is happening all the time in the system. And so it is absolutely imperative that we know what those procedures are. You know, as Bob said before, we have to know what those procedures are, because this is something that affects every citizen, every single one of us has the opportunity to be arrested. I don't know how many folks here attend protests or, you know, do anything out of the ordinary, but the reality is it's very likely that at some point in any of our lives we could come into contact with the police. And that's one of the fears that they try to use against you, is that you can be disappeared. You know, as we heard in the case of Kyam, you know, we'll lose your papers. That's the scariest term they can use in the prison system, because we all know when they say we'll lose your papers, that means nobody will be able to find you. You know, your parents, your councilmen, nobody will be able to find you. And we can't allow that. That is unacceptable. I mean, when you look at, this is New York. We're supposed to be the pinnacle of industry, of policy, of economic, you know, everything. But we can't find a way to treat people better than that when they're in the system. You know, this is just something that we have to keep in mind. And I'm hoping that as we go forward, we find a way to compile more of these stories, because that is exactly what we're talking about, you know. And I wish I could say it was the first or the last time that I've heard a story like that, but unfortunately these kind of things happen all too often, but we don't communicate, we don't organize as a community, and so people are struggling on their own. People might file complaints, people might, you know, try to reach the media, but unless we start to compile these things and go to the Attorney General, go to the Mayor's office with a stack of these stories and say, look at what's happening, you know, look at what your officers that you're paying for are doing, I fear that this can continue to happen, you know. But I think that now we've reached a point where we are starting to realize that the only way to make change in the city is to get a whole lot of people to get active about it, right? And we saw it happen last year with the Stop and Frisk thing. Folks came out and marched, and people participated in all these different ways. And guess what? We got de Blasio elected. But did that help? Is the question. I'm not saying it didn't or it did. I'm just saying, did that help? Because to me, the real point of it all was to get the people active. And anything that placates us, be it an election, be it, you know, we got this person as the DA, we got this person in office, anything that placates us and makes us feel like we can stop now, is a lie, right? And so regardless of who's there, regardless of what the lawyers are doing and what these other officers are doing, we need to make sure that we're here and we're standing strong with this family.
Hello. How you doing? Yeah, I came to support Kyam Livingston's family a couple times. I try to stay active and support as many families that I can that suffer from the hands of police violence, racist police violence. I was a supporter. I was there. I was a member of the Kyam Committee. Those of you who know, that's in Bronx, where I live in the Bronx. It happened, and I was there the day after it happened. No, I was there the same day it happened. Yeah, there was a crowd of people in the streets, yelling, shouting, angry, like hundreds, about like 200 young people, just angry about it, and we flooded the streets, and we marched to the precinct. We made a lot of noise, we organized, and we started this Kyam Committee. I stayed with them for over a year. I supported them and their everything they wanted to do. One of the most significant conversations that I had with them involved when we were talking about how we went from a few hundred supporters to only a few dozen. Some people thought that we had to, our main objective should have been getting more media coverage by getting on the radio, by talking to, someone who has some political clout, or someone who's known publicly, to get more people involved, to get heard. When it came down to it, it was it was a couple more times in the beginning when we had when we organized enough and we built. It was one time I'm sorry, my ideas are my memory's kind of scattered, but it was a few times in the beginning when we had a few hundred, and then we organized and we had a few thousand people there in front of the precinct shouting and protesting. And the first time we were there, the cops laughed at us. The second time, there wasn't laughing anymore. And they took off their regular uniforms and had on nice shirts that were more friendly. And we got the most coverage those times, and we had 1,000 people there. And we organized in the streets for those people. Now, the significant conversation that we had was about why aren't people supporting enough? People said, "Oh, hey, people don't care," or people are scared, and I disagreed. But sometimes for people it is, and sometimes people are tired of hearing the same thing. Sometimes people listening to be told the brutal truth, and not hear the same things that they are told all the time. We need to keep voting, or we have to, because people are numb to those ideas. I think people are very numb to the faith in the system. And I think that some members of the committee ignored the very thing that made them get that publicity, that acknowledgement that case got. It was the people who did. that got them that publicity. It was the people that brought all that media attention to their cause. And suddenly, I don't know, somewhere I think that was misplaced, but I thought it was very profound that they shouldn't do that. I think the most important thing, our strongest weapon is each other. And I think that as long as we don't forget that, as long as we try to harness everyone's mind, body, and soul, and just unite with each other in our causes and our struggles, we can really bring a change and really just make a way, a path for our future and for our children's future. I can't stress that anymore. The only way that we're ever going to get a change in the system is if we change it. It's not going to come if we, by any de Blasio or any, as we can tell, or any Obamas. As much as we like to believe in them, they do provide some comfort, and it brings us some sense of hope that, oh, hey, maybe this will be a good one. Maybe we won't have to struggle so hard or something, but the truth of the matter is we will have to struggle until we have a real say in society. Right now we have none. Right now we're all prisoners of the system. Until we decide to look at ourselves that way, we will ever be that way until we can unite and push for change that has our interests at heart, where we have some say in society. And that change can only come from each other. We can't rely on no one else, no political figure, no star, no billionaire is going to make that change. We have to do it. It's going to be hard, but I think if we unite together, we can do this. I've been in struggles for a long time. I don't know, maybe a little under a decade. As long as I have a breath in my body, I will be supporting families who have experienced situations like this. That shouldn't happen. It should happen to anyone. Now, I think that we need to have that same kind of ethic, the same kind of principle to fight, and know that one person's child who is murdered as another one's of our children that could have died. Now, we have to put a stop to it. And it's up to us to do it, everyone in this room. You all have a responsibility. You need to fulfill it, myself included. I plan on doing so. And that starts with talking to each other, supporting each other, putting our self aside. We can't be selfless in this society as much as they want us to. We have to fight against that, those selfish urges of thinking about ourselves and our own personal hang-ups or what we need to do. There's nothing more important than staying together and fighting for a real cause that will change our future for the better, forever. And I know it doesn't seem that way because these small struggles seem so small, but they can make giant leaps, and that's really inspiring.
Yes, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Very heartfelt words. Definitely makes me think of the power of one. When you make a decision to do something, and you make a decision to show up. Think of all those times that you said, okay, it's too cold outside, I'm not gonna go, or I'm too tired, or whatever the excuse was. But then think of those times that you dragged yourself out to go to an event, and the people you met, and the things that happened. Even the people you meet out here on Flatbush Avenue, as we're passing out flyers, every person that is reached is potential, and we don't know how far that potential can go. So I definitely want to echo his sentiment on that as far as, it's just about each individual making a commitment to do something. I hope everyone signed in on the sign-in sheet so that when we have instructions for folks and things that we need people to do, that people, you know, can kind of jump in because they know exactly what's called on from them. But it's important to realize that, you know, like he said, we had tremendous media attention around Trayvon Martin. You know, all over the country, all over the world, people marched, rallied, and nothing. You know, his family did not get justice. Not any shape, way, or means did they get justice. And the same goes for Molly Graham, which, I mean, you can't compare and say one is more egregious than the other, but I mean, they straight up police murdered Ramali Graham. They kicked in his door, went into his house, chased him upstairs in the bathroom while they held his mother downstairs and killed him. I mean, it doesn't get more obvious than that, but there's still no justice in that case. You know, so this is why we gotta fight. I want to bring up one of our members from DC 37, who's been doing a lot of work organizing his group, as well as making sure the committee stays on point, stays focused, and just let us know exactly what he's been working on. Neil Funkin.